This is chapter 5, which is European exploration and colonization. So in Europe, the three main powers was New Spain, New France, and New Netherlands. They were all seeking the three G's: glory, God, and gold. And so gold was to expand their wealth, glory was for more land and power, and God was to change or convert others to their religion. So these all sought to get more, obviously, land, and so they went to what was known as the New World. And eventually, they established the Columbian Exchange, which was the trade between all these crops from one world to the other, and it introduced new food cultures that benefited both worlds. And so what was also traded and was unknown was diseases such as the measles and smallpox. But this killed off many of the native populations, or the Native Americans. Also, the more exploration reasons was the seeking for more technological advances, which is gunpowder and compass, and then also more food, spices, and trades. And then New Spain had Mexico, and they also had Peru. New France had Canada and Mississippi, and New Netherlands had diverse ethnic groups and had religious toleration. And so eventually we came to 1607, the establishment of Jamestown, Virginia, which was the start of the 13 colonies, which led to the progression of conflict between Britain and the Americas.
Chapter 8, American Revolution. King George III started to tax the colonies to what is now known as taxation with a representation. The king put taxes on sugar, glass, and tea. The tea taxes led to the Boston Tea Party, where tea was poured into the Boston Harbor. This would lead to the Boston Harbor to be closed and the colonies to be more in debt with the king. They started to be in debt with the king after the French and Indian War. The colonists decided to go to war, starting with Lexington and Concord. Lexington and Concord, then moving to Valley Forge, Saratoga, and Yorktown. The alliance with the French would lead to victory in the war.
Chapter 4, Establishing the Government. After the colonists won their independence, they gathered around Philadelphia to create a document to establish a government. They called it Articles of Confederation. So basically, they created a system where the state government had most of the power and the federalists had the least. And then they ratified it. Later on, there was problems because the articles had many weaknesses. Basically, the Congress barely had any power to govern, so there was a rebellion called Shays' Rebellion, which farmers who were veterans from the war were being taxed too much and they lost the land. So they protested and burned buildings down. So the delegates from states decided to gather around and revise it. They all found compromises. One of them was about representation in Congress, which there was Virginia who decided to create a plan where representation should be dependent on population.
This is chapter 9, Rights and Responsibilities. The First Amendment was the right of assembly, freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and right to petition. The Second Amendment was the right to bear arms, which still causes problems today. The Third Amendment was no quartering soldiers in peace or in war. The Fourth Amendment said protection from unreasonable searches. The Fifth Amendment was the Shut Up Amendment. The Sixth Amendment was trial by jury but for criminal cases, and the Seventh, trial by jury but for business cases. The Eighth Amendment was no excessive bail or unusual punishment. The Ninth Amendment was any rights not stated by the Constitution still existed for the people, and the 10th Amendment was anything not prohibited or granted to the national government reserved for the state or the people. The citizenship was either you're born in the U.S. and you're already a citizen, or you have to live in here for 5 years and must be a good character, be literate, speak English, and understand our history and government, and swear allegiance to the U.S. Constitution.
Chapter 10, the Early Republic. It all started when George Washington was elected as president. There was many policies during his term, like the the cabinet was created, the Hamilton financial plan was created, which caused many issues. Like new political parties were created, like the Democratic Republic. Also, he also warned the people in his farewell address about foreign allies. Oh God! And then after third President Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, he bought the Louisiana um, territory, and he also tried to hide the French Revolution. And then during James Madison's term, there was problems with Britain. Britain started oppressing sailors. He allying with Native Americans to attack, which caused the War of 1812. And after the war, the U.S. won and caused an era called the Era of Good Feelings Club. Also, the end of the Federalists happened. The U.S. is still agricultural, and then but the North was industrializing since they didn't depend on England anymore. And as far as the Supreme Court increased, like the cases like the Mulberry and Madison case and other cases.
The age of Jackson started when President Jackson was elected, and at his time of his presidency, it was known as the Jacksonian democracy. At the time of his presidency, the Tariff of Nations was passed, which South Carolina did not like, so they practiced the theory of nullification. And they did practice the theory, but then they returned back to normal after the Force Act was passed the following year. At the same time, the Industrial Revolution was happening. New inventions and better transportations were we're making America better. There is new processes of factories, a mass increase in buying of slaves due to the mass increase of cotton picking and removing seeds from cotton. Because of the Industrial Revolution, problems came, such as the reform movements, which came out of the Second Great Awakening, which was another religious revival. Because of the Second Great Awakening, they created social reform movements, such as the working movements. No, alongside the Industrial Revolution, the Second Great Awakening was also happening. It was a religious revival that set forth many social movements, such as the abolitionists, which wanted to end slavery, the temperance movement, which wanted to ban alcohol, the mentally ill, and the prisoner reform, and also the education reform, which wanted to give more education to children. Oh, Chapter 12, Manifest Destiny. Starting off from President Jackson's election, the belief of which America had the right to expand all the way to Pacific Ocean was born, which was known as Manifest Destiny. As more land was obtained from treaties such as the treaty with Britain from Oregon, the Mexican Cession, the Gadsden Purchase, and the Louisiana Purchase, America started to gain more land. More of these lands started causing more problems, also alongside the rise of sectionalism, which was loyalty to one part of the country, such as the North wanted to end slavery, the South believed they needed slavery to keep their country alive, and the West were just the West. Right. With the rise of the new land and sectionalism, the government tried to create new compromises, such as the Missouri Compromise of 1820 and the Compromise of 1850, which wanted to solve the political power between the South and the North in the government.
War lasted a horrible 4 years through 1861. Starting in 1861 through 1865, the Civil War began because the election of Abraham Lincoln, which the South tried as much as they could to prevent his election, and that in his inaugural address he said that a house cannot stand divided, and that he would either eliminate slavery or just limit it as much as possible, and that because of his election, the South seceded, starting with South Carolina and Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and Arkansas joining their action. And then Jefferson Davis became the leader of the Confederacy, and the South believed that slavery should be a part of the state govs, and that the sectionalism became a big part of it because the industrial North and the agricultural South. And their plan for the North was the Anaconda Plan, which proposed to choke out the South of their supplies and just to blockade where their main stuff came from Britain. Britain thought that they could take back the U.S. in the midst of their fighting, and so they thought it was just easier. And one major battle was the Battle of Antietam, was the bloodiest day battle, and then the Gettysburg was the turning point of the war. And after the war, Lincoln gave his Gettysburg Address, which was saying that democracy was being tested whether it would sink or swim, and that eventually it led to his Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all the slaves. Most of them joined the Union Army and fought against the South, and then eventually the end of the Civil War came at the Appomattox Courthouse, Lee surrendering to Grant, and the Civil War ending, and Lincoln had a better leadership than Jefferson Davis because he was more qualified to be a leader.
Chapter 14, the Reconstruction Era. After the Civil War, the era of Reconstruction started where the South and the North were being reconstructed after the Civil War. In the North, they were having the Second Industrial Revolution, where they received an increase in immigration and urbanization, where they received many European immigrants, and where the new process for steel called the Bessemer process, where steel could be created even faster, which helped with the construction of canals and railroads. At also this time, there is also another time after the Civil War, there is also a change of music, culture, art, and literature, just as it has happened after the Second Great Awakening.
The West, the last frontier. So after the Civil War, people started construction. So the president started making laws like the Homestead Act, which allowed people or citizens to have land for themselves. Also the No Rail Act, which allows that the government gave states so they can build colleges like A&M. The Dawes Act, which gave Indians land if they agreed to leave their tribe and only share it for themselves. Also, transportation came along, like the Transcontinental Railroad, which connected the coast to coast. The Great Plains Indians, which they had problems with the U.S. moving to their land, so they had wars. The U.S. won those battles, and they forced the Indians to move to reservation.
This is chapter 14, the Reconstruction Era. So in the South, they had to deal with the new freedmen, which is the former slaves. So they had the freedmen's something like that, school, which helped educate them and help them get ready for society. So there was something called the Black Codes, which said that a former slave walking around would be imprisoned without a job. And so later on, the KKK came to power or whatever, which they lynched or messed with the black people's lives. And then the 13th Amendment was passed, which ended slavery. The 14th Amendment granted the former slaves citizenship, and the 15th Amendment was the right to vote. So a sharecropping system was the plantations where it's divided for the slaves. They didn't earn money, but provided for their family.